Your friend in Central Illinois. WHOW.
Top of the morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHOW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. My guest in studio this morning is Paul Skowron, CEO of Warner Hospital and Health Services. Good morning, Paul. Good to see you, my friend. Yeah. Thanks for coming out and talking with us. And you and I were talking about our recovery from some upper respiratory things over the last 10 to 14 days. Sounds like you're kind of on the mend, as am I. So
I am. I think I can talk through 20 minutes without coughing, I hope. But typical January, I'm like many of the patients that came through the walk-in clinic early January or mid-January, all the congestion and almost flu-like symptoms presented themselves, but it wasn't the flu. And so, as you said, our bodies tell us that we have to get some rest as well as the proper meds and things like that. And I am on the mend, as I see you are.
Sure. Well, and tell me a little bit about January at the hospital. What'd you see this year? What was the trend like?
Yeah, the trend was very seasonal and fortunately not COVID-like. So I say very seasonal in that we had talked earlier in the late fall about how I was hoping for normal weather, a normal winter weather pattern, which we did have, and of course that forced people to be inside during the holidays. Everyone got together, shared some germs, and all of those things combined to present a normal January where the walk-in clinic is about 25% busier, 400 visits a month. But most of it is your typical seasonal pre-COVID flu-like symptoms. Mm-hmm. So it's almost good to see the normal symptoms we used to see historically in this winter period.
Back to normal at the hospital, it sounds like then. Yeah, interesting stuff. Now, and I don't mean to get super political on you or anything, but I know we have a new administration in Washington, and been a lot of focus on health and all the things with some of the confirmation hearings. I'm just curious how much of that has occupied your attention, and is anything come to mind as you watch what happens out on the East Coast there, Paul?
Watching very carefully because we are preparing our budget that starts the fiscal year of May 1, and so we have to make some projections about revenue. So I have to look with some confidence at will the typical Medicare, Medicaid, commercial insurance, Blue Cross, will all this reimbursement be approximately the same as I had predicted pretty accurately in the past? And with this administration presenting some surprises every day and potentially some very new ideas on reimbursement, I am watching it very carefully.
Yeah. Anything that has come to light that has not necessarily startled you, but you're just like, well, that could impact us. What's happened within some of these things?
Well, you see cost-cutting discussions, and there was a blip here in the last week about will Medicaid reimbursement be the same? Mm-hmm. That's 20%, 22% of our population. Very important. Mm-hmm. It's important to the state of Illinois. Yes, those things, and Medicare Advantage, watching carefully on what the developments might be for Medicare Advantage. We have an increasing number of Medicare Advantage patients that have signed up for these different programs and different insurance companies over the last couple of years. And it's not clear on what the new administration, how it views Medicare Advantage. It's looking... And it's only beginning because they don't even have their HHS secretary yet. But it's clear that the team is looking for ways to reduce expenditures. And if Medicare and Medicaid end up being programs that get hit, we need to know, we need to prepare for that.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Back to traffic here locally, just in January with cold and flu and those sorts of things. Was you mentioned it was back to a pretty typical winter. How did that impact your staff? Did you face any challenges there in terms of your folks getting sick and needing the time off and all of that?
Yes, but it wasn't unusually high, fortunately. We have enough staff where existing staff can fill in. The expanded emergency room was very timely because the weather also was very seasonally typical. So as you know, we've had some snow and some ice storms in January, which resulted in more emergency room activity, traffic accidents, things like that.
Very good. So prepared on that front. Then it sounds like.
Yes.
Nice. Awesome. Did I miss anything, Paul? On January at the hospital. The new administration in Washington. Its impact on Warner Hospital. Did we miss anything in that
No,
realm?
but I am watching that every day.
Yeah, very good. Paul Skowron, CEO of Warner Hospital and Health Services, our guest in studio for this morning. And Paul, we watch that west side of the hospital continue to develop. I know you talked about the weather. All the snow and ice we've gotten over the last month or so now. I'm sure that put a little bit of a pause and a halt in some of the progress. Give us an update on what's going on at the hospital these days in terms of construction.
Yes, the west side entrance, that'll be the new entrance for the specialty care clinic. Our best case scenario was that it could be open by February 1, and that was based on more moderate weather than we had. As a result of the very cold weeks, we had to postpone some of the work, and now we're going to have a warmer week coming up here than average, so we'll be able to resume. So our new projected opening date is no later than April 1. April 1 is getting the specialty clinic entrance open in the spring is very important, because on May 15th, we are going to have a health fair / open house. And so that'll be the culmination of a lot of construction activity and a platform that provides better service for the patients. So we'll both be highlighting, we haven't had a health fair in 2 years, but we'll also be highlighting all of the new entrances and facilities and services that have been we've been able to construct for the last really 5 years. So we'll be able to show off our expanded emergency room, which is double the size that it was previously, as well as the new specialty clinic entrance, and give a tour of the entire hospital.
Will that be in that new parking lot then there?
It will.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like that. That's good. Good stuff there. Now, is the project, is it behind because of the weather? Were you anticipating, a typical winter? So you put kind of a maybe 15 to 20 day buffer in there?
A 45-day buffer.
You did? Yeah. Okay. So
we planned.
this was anticipated then?
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
The weather was looking good before Christmas, and we were thinking we would be on the best side of it, but then it turned into a typical seasonal winter, and so we're getting what we planned for.
Tell me where you're at in terms of where the project stands. What's still to be done?
The steel frame has been installed before the weather got bad. Much of the concrete had been installed. The street has been resurfaced, but the last piece of concrete for the ramp that will allow wheelchairs to be use wheelchairs to get into the entrance there, that had to wait. So now that the steel is up, as soon as the weather breaks here in the next couple weeks, we'll be able to start installing the remaining sidewalk and ramp, as well as the frame for the outside, which will cover patients coming into the entrance, and will provide the structure for the sign that says Warner Specialty Clinic that you'll be able to see coming from the west.
When will you start to drill into that wall for the actual entrance installation? And
It'll
all
be
that?
in February.
Yeah, planning for that then?
Sure.
Yeah, you'll probably want a few nice days to make sure you don't have all that cold air blowing in. Now, you mentioned the road was resurfaced, Paul. Will there be the ability for drop-off at that covered entrance by vehicles for patients, with limited mobility or no mobility, those sorts of things?
Yes, the sidewalk and the curb was recut to allow for that. So it was cut in a little bit, and then it was cut down where the wheelchairs will be able to come in. And so all of that is designed for folks to be able to park in the new specialty clinic parking lot right next to it with the electric chargers, as well as drive right up to the sidewalk and let their patients out and get in a wheelchair immediately and roll in up the ramp.
Very good. Again, I know we've talked about this before, but will this impact any of the operations on that side of the hospital while this is going on, particularly that the building itself work?
It actually did impact operations in November and December, but inside the hospital, we've already been able to open the new waiting room, and patients are reacting very positively to that because the wall is glass that separates the reception area from the waiting area, and so it looks bigger, just like the emergency room. New emergency room waiting area has a glass wall, and it is larger, but it also gives the impression of being larger because you can see out of the waiting room. So it is now functional. The new waiting room is functional.
A lot going on at the hospital these days. This is the culmination of many years. We talked about the emergency room renovation and really being able to fully utilize that over the winter and those sorts of things. This really kind of culminates a lot of things you've been working on for the last several years.
So it turns out that yesterday was my 10-year anniversary.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, Paul, if it's all right with you, let's break and talk about that on the other side of the break, if that's okay.
Let's do that.
I like it. A little tease of 10 years with Paul Skowron at Warner Hospital and Health Services. Paul can't believe it's been 10 years. We'll talk about that and more coming up with him on the WHOW Morning Show.
WHOW. Your friend in Central Illinois, WHOW.
Once again, a good morning. Thanks for being with us. I'm your host today, Seth Lawrence. The WHOW Morning Show streams to Facebook and YouTube, brought to you by Peterson Insurance, your Pekin Insurance agent in Clinton. Paul Skowron, CEO of Warner Hospital and Health Services, in studio with us today. And, Paul, I can't believe it. 10 years of you in Clinton. That is... time flies when you're having fun, right?
I don't know what happened. The good news is we both get better looking every day.
I think. Well, I speak for yourself, sir. But no, it's been an eventful 10 years. You know, in the middle of it all, there was a pandemic. But boy, I'll tell you what. And I don't think anyone would dispute this. You have come in and taken our little hospital to new heights. Paul, tell me about 10 years and what's the highlight for you, my friend?
Let's talk about the evolution over the last 10 years. But first, let me give credit to the board members from 25 years ago that put up the family medicine building. I believe Dr. Wood, the eye doctor that's passed away, was the chairman of the board at the time. And having the family medicine was behind the emergency room in the basement for years. That's amazing. And so it is so fortuitous that they had vision and built that separate building that over time, the family practice, which supports the entire hospital and the community, has been able to flourish and grow into it. And it is almost at capacity now. We have one new doctor coming in August, and that will fill out all of the exam rooms and all the services. So that's a way of looking at it. It took 25 years to fully utilize that building.
Yeah.
So that was really important. Then you get to 2015 when I arrived, and there was the discussion, as you recall. I almost think you've been here 10 years talking about this with me. There was that discussion of, should we build a new hospital? And the hospital was losing money at the time. It had already borrowed money for some improvements that were necessary, real functional improvements, electrical, heating, and air conditioning, all that kind of stuff. And so I looked at the foundation of the hospital. It is really a solid building, and decided that if we can, over time, if we can start making money, getting profitable, which we did, we can start investing in different sections over time. And sure enough, over those 10 years, we renovated the lab. We renovated radiology, put in a new CT machine, DEXA scan machine, upgraded the software for radiology. We improved the look of the entrance for the admitting area, so that what used to be the chapel is now the waiting area. And then a new pharmacy, took the pharmacy out of the basement, put it upstairs.
Now, haven't you done away with the pharmacy altogether?
Oh, no.
No, okay.
We couldn't do that, or we wouldn't have a license.
Oh, sorry.
What we
yeah.
What we closed was the 2 ICU beds.
Okay,
You
okay.
see? That's where the pharmacy is now. And so we did that because I looked at the ICU and said, 4 to 5 patients a year. Why is that? Because we're not a large enough hospital to really properly take care of ICU patients. They always got transferred out of the emergency room and went to the larger hospital.
Sure.
So let's use that footprint, and let's use it better and get the small pharmacy in the basement out of there and put it right next to the nurses up in the medical surgical unit.
Okay.
And therefore, they were able to upgrade their equipment, their pharmaceutical equipment, for the best technology of mixing prescriptions and all that stuff. And it's worked out wonderfully that they're right next to each other, and the pharmacy is able to better service medical surgical. But they're also continuously servicing the emergency room also. So we expanded the pharmacy. From there, we started the discussions about the emergency room. That took many years to design that properly, but that has really jettisoned the ability of the hospital to service patients in all of DeWitt County, not just the immediate Clinton area. So emergency EMS services are much more confident now to be bringing patients, as they are, with our volume 25 to 30% higher than it was 6 to 9 months ago. It's an ongoing thing now. And so one of the other things, besides the physical upgrades, has been our partnerships with other hospitals, both large and small, with other rural hospitals. Our partnership with Gibson Area Hospital, and that's one of the reasons we worked on expanding the specialty clinic, because they have brought in some wonderful specialists, rheumatologists, ENT, and Dr. Keller in orthopedics, Dr. Glickstein, our ENT, and all of these specialists that have proven to be great service that our primary care, our family medicine doctors can refer patients to. And so we said, we need to expand that, and so that was why we said, let's make the specialty clinic more accessible for patients so they don't have to walk through the hospital. And so that's the culmination of our partnership, specifically with Gibson Area Hospital, but with the larger hospitals also, with Carle Hospital, with St. Joe Hospital in Bloomington, with Decatur Memorial. all these hospitals that work with us on quickly being able to transfer patients in the emergency room after we stabilize them to the larger hospitals to get their to get the best care and the best recovery.
Sure. Not to revisit the plans for a new hospital, but I know really COVID kind of changed. Not necessarily the trajectory, maybe the future plans of the hospital. Kind of speak to how COVID kind of changed things for you, and now where you see the direction of the hospital going.
Excellent point. I was on the fence, just like so many rural hospitals wanted to build a new hospital. One of the first things I did when I got here was price out a new hospital, 23 to 25 million 10 years ago. Then COVID hits. And instead, we focus on being able to service the patients and have good outcomes and be safe during the COVID period. But what did that COVID period do to the economy? It increased the cost of so many supplies and materials and labor. The result was once COVID was done, now it's $45 million to build a new hospital. That means borrowing a lot of money. We're not interested in borrowing money. We've paid off all our debt. We have no debt. And it's one of the reasons we're able to continue to invest without borrowing money in new projects.
On top of that, really how healthcare happens has changed too, correct?
Correct.
How has that changed?
With COVID has put a new focus on safety. And that was the double benefit of moving the specialty clinic, having a new entrance so that patients didn't need to walk through the hospital where there were COVID patients. You don't have to walk through the medical surgical area and be concerned about germs if you can enter the specialty clinic directly now.
Right. Yep, for sure. And so a lot of things have changed. But the one thing that just stands out to me, Paul, is just all the new ways and the just keeping people in Clinton for their health care.
That's right.
Now you don't have to leave to go to Bloomington, Decatur, Lincoln, wherever, Champaign, Springfield, farther away. So much of what you can take care of yourself with is right here now. And I just think that's been such a huge part of your time in Clinton.
That's correct. And I have to give credit to both the Kiwanis, which is closed now, but my participation in Rotary. This accelerated my relationship with all of the key players in town, from the churches to the school district and all the not-for-profits, the ROSC, the Recovery Cares organization, all of those things, being involved in all those things, tied the hospital into sharing and providing better services to the residents of Clinton and DeWitt County.
Sure. Well, I don't know, Paul, if you're going to be around 10 more years, but if you are, here's to 10 more good years with you in Clinton. I appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you, sir.
10 years of Paul Skowron, CEO of Warner Hospital in Clinton, our guest in studio this morning. Network news on the way on The Morning Show.
WHO.